Welcome to the Herd's official YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Colin Cowherd podcast, all of our NFL instant reactions, and more football content. You and I didn't have a very good week. It was a weird week. But when you dig deep on Detroit, we talked about this. Brand new coordinators don't take week 1 too seriously or the preseason. It looks like they've righted the ship. They look like Detroit the last several years. Physically up front, pushing people around.
I got questions about the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can answer them.
All right, so last night was the perfect example of how you beat a superstar quarterback when you're the road team. Detroit dominates time of possession. They're aggressive on fourth down. They convert in the red zone. No field goals. We're getting touchdowns. They bullied the home Ravens for 3.5 hours. Super aggressive. And you think of Baltimore as tough and physical and resilient. Now, this defense is just as soft as the Dallas Cowboys defense. Baltimore's last in total defense. They surrender a ton of yards. I don't want to hear about the pass rushers they were missing. That wasn't about pass rushing last night. They invested a lot of money in Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, their top 2 draft picks. They got over $100 million on defense, and they're soft. And by week 4 and 5 in the NFL season, we're getting to be a quarter of the way through it. Some of your problems you can't solve unless at the trading deadline you take a big swing. So this was 3.5 hours of total domination. It may have been 38-30. It felt like 48-17. And here's the weird thing, is that Lamar Jackson is so explosive that when he does lead a scoring drive, it's often very quick. So they send that crappy defense back on the field. They don't get any rest. So the Ravens, bizarrely, have the second fewest plays per drive in the league and the number 1 total offense. So they don't play complementary football. And if you look at the last 10 Super Bowls, which is 20 total teams, there's been one awful defense, Atlanta. What happened to Atlanta in that Super Bowl? They blew a huge lead. You're not a Super Bowl team with that defense. So the Ravens have a huge dilemma, which I don't know if it's solvable, is that they score because they're so dynamic with Lamar Jackson. He's so gifted. They score quickly, and then the defense doesn't get a rest. It goes right back onto the field. It's not complementary football. Like last year, the Lions defense stunk. But the Lions were number 2 in the league last year in time of possession. So at least they kept their average defense on the sidelines, and they won 15 games. That's not what Baltimore does. Plus, they got a Derrick Henry fumbles in imperfect times issue. So, and again, by week 4, week 5, you kind of know what your issues are. I mean, the Lions had 96-yard drive and 70-yard drive and 98-yard drive and 60-yard drive. They did whatever they wanted to do. And if you look at the Baltimore game, their defense against Detroit last night, and the Ravens defense against Buffalo, combined, those 2 games, they only forced those teams to punt 3 times. 3 times out of 13 total possessions. So I went this morning and looked at the Ravens defense, their NFL rank, they're last, 30th, 31st, and everything. Yeah, they were missing a couple pass rushers. That wasn't about pass rush. Detroit was in control. I mean, by the third quarter, every time Baltimore sent that defense out to make a stop, they couldn't. So the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed days are over. This defense doesn't do a lot well. They've spent money on it, and bizarrely, they score too quickly. If you are weak defensively, we've talked about this a lot. Like one of the issues Kansas City has, they have no run game. So their defense is good, but it looks worn down in the second half. Well, Ravens defense looks worn down in the first half. And again, Lamar is so explosive that that defense is on the field way too many snaps. And John Harbaugh saw the same thing we did.
The biggest problem is we didn't play good run defense. I mean, we didn't, as a defense complete, we didn't do it. And that's not going to be good enough. There's nobody in that locker room that thinks that's good enough. That's disappointing. That's bad run defense. And that's not who we are. It cannot be who we are. It's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be acceptable. And it's got to be better.
So, again, when you get to this point of the season, the trade deadline's up, in about 3 weeks? Rams may need a corner. Ravens have to figure out something defensively. Now, they will have pass rushers return, which could help them in close games late if they have a lead. But right now, this defense is just not good, and they've invested in it, and it was a major problem last night. Let's talk Lions. Let's give them some credit. So there's a big difference. It's a fine line, but there is a difference between stubborn guy and guy who has a very strong self-belief. And I initially thought Dan Campbell was a little stubborn when he would always go for it on fourth because they didn't like their personnel. But now that they have really good personnel, he's self-belief guy. He's never wavered on what he does. He's go for it guy. When they went for it with a $1:56 left in the fourth quarter, 4th and 2, and despite the fact they'd run at will on Baltimore and they throw it downfield, that is self-belief. That is believing in your dudes. And they should. Again, I thought Dan was reckless in his first couple of years because going for it on 4th down with average players is dumb. Detroit drafts really well. They've got a great front office. Going for it last night, I would have run. I think we all thought they were going to run. But on the 2 big 4th downs, the one at the goal line, kind of the double pitch, and then they throw it over the top. So, I mean, that was really clever. Both of those caught you off guard. They don't have a tush-push, and yet the last 3 years, they're number 1 in the league on 4th down conversions. They don't have a tush-push. They have a Goff hands it off, give it to Gibbs, but they don't have a tush-push. So, again, there's a fine line between stubborn guy and, hey, I believe in what we are. And Dan Campbell took over a very flimsy franchise. The Lions always had talent. Barry Sanders, Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson. They always had talent. They had no identity. And so Dan came into a fault and said, we're going to be tough, relentless, and physical, and super aggressive. And again, I was like, I don't know. But going forward on 4th down, it's got a Jim Harbaugh feel to it. It's completely authentic, and he's not wavering. This is who he is, home or away, good team or bad. He's going to go for it, and here's Dan Campbell after.
I got a tremendous amount of trust in those guys, and that's been built up now in 5 years, right? And that helps. And that offensive line, the way they were playing, and we just felt like that was the right call. And it's those guys, it's the players, man. They're the ones who make this stuff come to life. And they've earned that trust, and they just, once again, man, they step up and make huge plays at critical times. And it's unbelievable. It really is. It's a thing of beauty.
If you look at the best teams in this league, you almost never ask, what are they? Like the Chargers and Harbaugh, what are they? Physical, aggressive. What are the Lions? You have never asked with Dan Campbell, like, what are they? They've had bad stretches. They've had bad defenses. You always know what they are. They are hyper-aggressive. In the best days of the Ravens when they were winning Super Bowls, they were physical. You didn't want to play the Ravens. Like the Patriots would go into games. Tom Brady said it. Yeah, I didn't really love playing those teams. Those teams, you felt you were sore the next 3 days. And that's a big part, like the tush push. The Eagles, you never doubt what they are. And there's a lot of talented players in this league, but go look at the standings this morning. And if you look at the top, the 3-0 teams and the 2-1 teams, almost always they have an identity. You kind of know what they are and what they stand for. Eberflus, head coach of the Bears, what were they? They weren't even good on defense all the time. Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins, they're fast. You never ask that with the Lions and Dan Campbell. So, J-Mac, it is a fascinating dilemma for the Ravens is that they have all sorts of good players, but it's not a complimentary football team. You cannot win Super Bowl. You can't win a World Series with a bad bullpen. You can't leak runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. You can't win a Super Bowl with a really bad defense because even if you outplay a team like Atlanta and the Patriots, you'll subsequently give up that, you'll give that lead up eventually. And I look at Baltimore last night and I'm like, no, that team can't win a Super Bowl. At their current state, at their current roster, I don't think they can win a Super Bowl.
It's interesting. I think they started 0-2 last year and then peeled off 5 in a row.
Yeah.
But there's only 6 teams in the AFC, Colin, right now with a winning record. That's it. And one of them is like the Colts, and the other with Jaguars. So the AFC is actually down. And I feel like Baltimore is maybe finding themselves early.
I have a theory on this.
Okay.
So in the last 2 years, I believe the NFC has caught up and surpassed the AFC. Ooh. So what happened was AFC teams, there were a lot of bad AFC teams, like Buffalo. They're a bad team. Or Cincinnati. They're not a very good team. And the Chargers, what are they? Phillip Rivers is getting old. There were a lot. And then all these AFC teams hit on quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. To some degree, like Trevor Lawrence has, Justin Herbert. So when you didn't have to pay Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City, when you didn't have to pay those quarterbacks yet, the top of the NFL was all these great quarterbacks on rookie deals. Then Baltimore, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Now you have to pay your star quarterbacks. What happens? Those teams in the AFC's rosters aren't very good. The NFC, many of the teams have quarterbacks on friendly deals. Darnold and the Seahawks, Baker and the Bucks, Purdy and the Niners, Hurts and the Eagles. So in the NFC, you don't have the superstars, but you have very good B+ to A- quarterbacks on team-friendly deals, and therefore your rosters are better. I think the rosters now are better in the NFC. The quarterback elite talent, now very expensive, is better in the AFC.
What are you eating, neuro gum over there? That is a hot, awesome take. I mean, that's good stuff from you. Now, Denver flies in the face of that. They have a young quarterback. They're 1-2, but they lost 2 games at the buzzer, right?
Yes.
So maybe they're going to be fine. But I do kind of like that. You pay your quarterback. You can't. The rest of the roster.
There was a 4 to 5 year stretch that we looked at. Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City were like, oh, yeah, those are easily the best teams because you had stacked rosters and superstar quarterbacks. But
Washington, Jaden Daniels.
Now look at Kansas City's O-line and run game, bad. Baltimore's defense, bad. Buffalo's back end, not very good. That's the one. Even the Chargers, we like them, but God, they could use another this. They couldn't keep Bosa. They could keep Khalil Mack. He gets hurt. You're like, uh-oh. So that's the reality is the NFC's got better value on very good quarterbacks, though not Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen. Great. So there you go.
Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Football steals the show this time of the year, but this is the last week for teams to punch their ticket to the baseball postseason. Who's in, who's out? If you know who's going to make it, step up to the plate on Hard Rock Bet today. New customers can place a $5 bet. If it hits, you get not only your winnings, but also $150 in extra bonus bets. Plus, every day this week on Hard Rock Bet, you can get a profit boost for a baseball parlay. There's new promos every day. Boost your same game parlay or SGP Max so your bet pays extra winnings. If you want to see what everybody else is betting on tonight, who's going to homer, top picks or parlays across other sports, the Hard Rock Bet app literally shows you. It's another reason to download the app just for the info, 90 seconds, all it takes. Tap Discover, and you can see trending picks and parlays at any time. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit.
So sometimes it takes a while for the truth to come out, for the whole story to be developed. We officially have it on why Shedeur Sanders dropped like a rock in the draft and ended up going in the 5th round with the Cleveland Browns, where he's now splitting scout team duties with Bailey Zappi. Deion Sanders admitted the Eagles and the Ravens called his son before the draft, but he didn't want to be a long-term backup. Deion is quoted as saying, hey, I never sat on the bench and learned a lot. I mean, who learns sitting on the bench? Oh, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, Brady, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Phillip Rivers behind Breeze. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes behind Alex Smith, Jalen Hurts. Oh, I just winged about 8 guys. Most are really, really good. But with Deion, it's I never. This isn't about you, primetime. Your son doesn't have primetime talent. He's an after-school special. You were a primetime talent. Okay, you're a totally different ballgame. You're projecting your talent onto your son. You suppressed a man. Think about this. So two great organizations said, would you like to come into our house and learn from us? Nah. And then Dion pre-draft went on and crapped on like the 4 or 5 bad teams that were interested. I mean, if your son or daughter is going to the market and you're a famous mom or dad and you say, listen, we're not going to work for any startups. And unless he's a vice president or she's a vice president, we're not working for Apple and Microsoft or Google either. Yeah, not great parenting. And this story has been undercovered because Dion's very popular in the media. But this is insane. Who learned something sitting on a bench? The best quarterback ever, Brady, sitting behind Drew Bledsoe, a total pro. Mahomes has acknowledged Alex Smith was instrumental to his growth. I mean, Lamar Jackson sat for 10 weeks behind Joe Flacco, learned the offense. Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts. I mean, that's what Green Bay does. We draft you, you sit and learn. Who learns from the bench? I got nothing against Shedeur. I've always said this is more of a Dion issue because son worships dad, son follows dad's advice. But the idea, who learns anything on the bench? Here's a memo. I was just reading a story this morning, I think it was in the New York Times, about how college-educated kids are struggling to find jobs out of college. Let me give you a tiny bit of advice. If a great company calls and says, listen, we're going to give you kind of a semi-internship, take it. There's not many great anything out there. There are very few great companies. Ravens, Eagles are great companies. If they call and they say, you know, it's not a starter, but you can sit here and figure it, you take it. I mean, it's one thing not to want to work with a startup and move cross country. You can probably sometimes, there's a million of those, most don't work. But this story now, the truth is coming out. I mean, the Ravens, Eagles said, we're interested. They're pretty good at player evaluation. And now you're splitting scout team reps with Bailey Zappi. I mean, it's this whole thing. Who learns anything on the bench? I mean, I can give you like 19 Hall of Famers who did not. I mean, we're not talking about a corner. And Dion was unbelievably gifted. You know, it's like, okay, Dad was unbelievable. Dad was prime time. I'm not denying that, best corner I've ever seen. But that wasn't what your son was. So I had to make sure this story wasn't from The Onion this morning. If the Eagles and Ravens call at any position, just say yes.